Make the same mistake twice. Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming in. The start of another week close at Christmas. We've got our Christmas lights up outside, by the way. Some people have called it too early. But would you think, look, is it too early for Christmas lights?
I don't want to be a party pooper, but yeah, it is a bit early.
No, you see, I don't think so. I don't think so. As soon as Guy Fawkes was done his business, that's it. Get the Halloween stuff.
I think I'm in the minority.
That was just a random question anyway, wasn't it? I just throw that out there. Anyway, tonight we are welcoming back after quite some time, too long in fact. Look, Tabram looks back.
I'm back.
Shadow Paranormal, or as some of our team call him, the Hat Man.
Wonder why that is.
I don't know. Where's the shades actually?
Oh, it's nearly Christmas. Can't be wearing them.
Well, see, there you go. It's nearly Christmas, hence why I've got the lights up. I'm glad we agree on something. But Luke is part of Shadow Paranormal. We've had them on 2 or 3 times, and we always have a bit of a natter and what have you, and sometimes just talk crap, which is kind of usual in our shows, but, we get by as we do. So how are we doing, young sir? It's been quite a long time since we last saw you.
It's been a very long time. Yeah, I'm doing really, really well. It's been a bit of a quiet year for us, to be honest, just because of multiple different bits and pieces going on. I was just saying before we came on air, I've just moved house, and then James has had a little baby now. So it's it's been a busy year sort of outside of investigating, but we've got loads of stuff planned for the new year, so we're getting back into it again now.
Plenty up for 2025. There's Laura saying, hi, good evening. Sorry I couldn't join you, Luke, but it's lovely to see you again. And always a pleasure, boss man. Thank you, dear. And that's Laura's other half. Hi, kids, love. Craig wears a hat as well. I think he fancies himself as a kind of Clint Eastwood with a beard. I know he's listening, so that's why I'm saying that. Do you know what I mean? I think it was either Craig or Laura gave you the name, the hat man. So there's another wee Bambino arrived.
Baby Jim. Yeah, I think middle of August. I think he was born. So it's been, that's taken up a lot of James's time. But yeah, no, we've got loads of stuff planned for the new year now. It's just been one of those years where we've started to get bits and pieces together and plans and stuff, and then something will happen and it's postponed. So it's been one of those difficult years where there's been lots going on. But yeah, hopefully be able to sort of settle down and get things moving again.
I think he's been. You forgot the leather jacket he wears. I gave Luke. It was Laura called you the Hat Man, and Craig wears a leather jacket as well. Sorry, dear. But I had not even you saying, Luke, because we've really not done much investigating. There's my other half in. Hi, B. We've really not done much investigating this year either. I think maybe 6 or 7 investigations, if even that.
We've certainly not done any more than that either.
But I mean, we've been kind of, also we've been doing our Wallace Trail, but obviously the weather in Scotland sucks. Even the summer, the weather sucks. We had COVID, we end up with COVID again and all the rest of it. So I totally get what you mean. I totally agree with it. It has been one of the kind of years, and I think there's a few paranormal teams the same. You plan something, and then it's coming up to it, and something else jumps in the way, and you think, right,
what's just
that off?
That's even been tight. Time has just vanished this year as well. I remember it was back in February, and then I blinked, and it's down to November now, and it's still that time's just vanished, and we've not done a huge amount. I just think it's been one of those funny old years, really.
That has been a quick year. I remember taking down our Christmas decorations, and then I've just put them back up, as I said before, just so I get that in again. But 2024 is nearly over and done with. I'm not going to ask you you've got planned for 2025. I'm a bit of a nosy bugger, but I'm not going to ask. I'll let you keep that to yourself and surprise everybody. But what I do want to chat about, as I say before we come on here, you just put a video a couple of days ago, yesterday, something like that, And the Return to the Shadows, episode 23. Was it 24? 23. I'll go with 23.
23, I think.
23. Good. I'm glad we agree on that, young sir. And I gave it a watch, and I really enjoyed it, actually. I really did enjoy it. I think that's when I first contacted you, I don't know, way back in the day. I'd watched a few of your videos, and I love the way how you blend the history with the paranormal. A bit like what we do, but you always get that wee talk first. We're here at such and such, and it's famous for whatever. And I think that's really important to do.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there's two different sorts of investigators. There'll be the people like ourselves that sort of think history goes hand in hand. It's important to know about it, to give context to a location as to where you're investigating. And then you've got people on the other side that don't want to know about any of the background or the history or sort of previous hauntings or anything, just so they go in there blind almost and just see afterwards if anything that they pick up on correlates with any of the history. So obviously that implies that the history is linked to hauntings. I think it just depends on what way you approach it, whether you want to know about the history beforehand to sort of, like say, give you context, or whether it's something that you go in blind, see if you get anything happen, any names, anything like that you can then correlate with the history afterwards. But either way, history is very important to just the nature of ghosts and ghost stories anyway.
I think it's important. You give me a bit of history on the place. When it was built, who built it, any famous things that are, it's famous for, that are you can Google, that are in the public domain. Basically, it's when you do the investigation and you get. Don't think you've probably heard it as well. We've heard it a few times. You get names that aren't on the internet.
Yeah.
And you go and you dig and dig and dig. Sarah and Laura are really good at it. You dig and you find that name that's nobody can sort of find right away. You really need to go digging for it. And then, that ties in with what you picked up on your investigation. I find that exciting.
Yeah, again, it's finding something that wasn't previously accessible information to you. So, which certainly enhances that what's been caught there has some relevance to it.
Mm-hmm. There are teams you just go straight in, guns. So if I'm watching an investigation, I'd at least like to know where they are. I've watched teams say, well, tonight we're at this castle and we're going to do an investigation. And that's it. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, you at least tell us what castle you're at.
Yeah.
A rough idea, if you're in the UK or Tasmania or something like that, usually this castle here, we're going to investigate it. I like to know kind of name it, before they sort of go, guns ho. But I want to get started on that video because I'd say I really, really enjoyed it. And there's quite a few locations that you put into it. I think one was spoke about before, which I found fascinating. The Elizabethan mansion.
That's a fantastic place.
But you started after you tell people, for those watching, what the video was about, basically.
Yeah, so it was just basically a load of clips from previous episodes over the last, I think they go back about 5 years, that we featured in that video. And it's just really sort of just reviewing what we've caught in them, just sort of current input into them, just basically explaining what happened, the background behind some of these events we recorded, and just giving a little bit of insight, especially, I'd say, some of the older clips in it were about 4 or 5 years ago. So it's sort of looking back in hindsight with it, and just having a little trip down memory lane and just reviewing some of the better captures we've had over the years.
I do that with some of the shows, because we obviously usually been doing this for 10 years now, is that right? 10 year anniversary?
Yeah, that was a couple of years ago. Yeah, been doing, just coming up to, I think it'll be 13 years next year.
Oh, right, I just made an arse of myself. Fucking arse.
It's closer to 10 than 20. So
we'll say over 10 years. That's the second time I've boo-booed folks. To just ladies in, I mailed Luke just before the show, and I thought I'd mailed him the link for the StreamYard, but I hadn't. I'd mailed him a TikTok link on how to hang up Christmas lights.
I'm an expert in hanging up Christmas lights now. Thank you very much.
And he was saying, "Can you send the link? Hey, Sophie Doc, can you send me the link?" And I said, "I've already sent it." And then I looked and I realised it was a TikTok link I'd sent him, which was absolutely no good whatsoever for doing this. But it comes in handy this time of year,
I was slightly confused, but I'm quite grateful for it now. I'm an expert in hanging up fairy lights, so all turned out well.
It did. It turned out well. So next week, his house is going to be beautiful. That ceiling behind him is going to be all lit up nice. It's going to be brilliant. No, it's nothing unusual for me, dear. I had one of the moments. So he started after the Jamaica Inn, which is one of the locations that I've always fancied doing. And it's sort of a chair moving.
Oh. Yeah, so we didn't ever have that. I think. Oh yes, Sophie would have got the messages in the group chat. Yes, I should have seen that.
Sorry, Sophie.
also seen the fairy light hanging.
Enjoy your lights.
But yeah, no, that chair moving in the Jamaica Inn was. We didn't put it in the final video because it just didn't. The camera we had fixed on the table was just blurry, so you couldn't really make out anything. All we had was the noise of it moving. So it was like, as interesting as it was for us being there, to just show that, to put it in a video to show the world, to me, it didn't have that compelling factor just because it was such a blurry camera. But anyway, it was, we sat around a table doing sort of almost a seance sort of thing, and they've got like an upper dining area and then a lower dining area. And we were all in the upper dining area, and then just heard like the sound of a chair just across the floor. And when I say there was no one else on that floor other than us, there was no one. I don't even think there's anyone else downstairs at that point.
It's captures like that, but I'll just stick these two comments up. 2 seconds, buddy. You're adding more lights. Please tell me you're joking. No, I'm adding more lights, dear. You will see this week there are more lights getting added. I've got 3,500 lights on the front of your house and in the carport, and I'm putting more. It's kind of deck the hall film kind of thing, so you can see it from Mars, basically. I'm an expert now too. Thanks. You're welcome, Sophie. I'll be glad to help. Always glad to help. It's when you get captures with that you hear something, a chair moving, and there's nobody else there, and it does set your mind thinking, what's moved the chair?
And it's one of those distinct sounds as well. It's not like it could sound like a creaking floorboard or something. It's very distinctly the sound of a chair moving. And like I say, the fact there's no one else there. What could have possibly done it? I don't know, because they're sort of the heavy wooden chairs as well. So not like, I don't know, not that a light chair would even drag across the floor, but certainly being big heavy wooden chairs forces it even further, that whatever that was had a bit of strength to be able to move it. And
when we've got a lot of EVPs that you don't hear on investigations. No doubt you're the same, and one of our best ones, we've got many quite good ones, but one of the ones we captured was we did the Ivy House. I don't know if you've done the Ivy House down near Warrington, or it's known as the
Demon not what we've done. I have heard of it though.
We did that about 2 years ago, something like that. And to be honest, we didn't get very much. As you can imagine, it's a bit of a hike for us to get doing, but we thought we were doing all excited. But it was a great experience, don't get me wrong. We loved going. We met up with Charlie Roxon and another few people. We did the investigation with them. But we didn't really get much. And it was when we were looking back at the footage, we had a locked off camera in the downstairs bedroom. I used to have it on this computer, but I don't know how to find it again. But I will find it again. And the we were up the stairs. This camera was down the stairs, and we heard which sounded, I can only describe it as old-fashioned shoes, old-fashioned school shoes with a wooden heel kind of thing, walking, and then it sounded like a little girl laughing, and the light on the camera moves, but the camera doesn't move. The light does. The new lights are secured to the top of the camera.
Yeah.
So if somebody bumped it or whatever, then the camera would, but the camera doesn't budge. But the light does, and you hear this, you clearly hear this, it sounds like a little girl kind of hee laughing, but she's come in and done something. Then when you hear the footsteps come in and going out, So it's great when you get something like that.
Especially with that, and you've not just got the one thing that happens there. You've got the footsteps, you've got the sound of a voice, and you've got the light on the camera moving. So you've got three different components there that make up that one event.
So we were all quite baffled because everybody was accounted for, and there was nobody. But I would recommend you do it. Go and have a wee. See, we didn't get much, but you know yourself, it might just have been an off night.
Yeah, I mean, there's been plenty of places we know are haunted because we've been there before, and then we'll go back and it will just be nothing all night, which is it's annoying because you know that the site has got capabilities of producing something, but I think that's just as interesting how somewhere can go from being really active one night to not on the next, or even through the course of a night. You can have, as you probably found, a period of loads of activity, and then it will just drop off to nothing, or vice versa, nothing at all, and then all of a sudden it will come out of nowhere and vanish again.
We always find, we do a place called Loudon-Kirk quite often, and we always find that after about 9 o'clock, now I know a lot of people don't believe, it's going to be after midnight and, stuff like that, but I mean, Spirit's 24/7 as far as we're concerned, but for some reason at Loudon-Kirk, after 9 o'clock, the whole atmosphere kind of changes, and that's when the activity starts. Have you ever had a place with that where after a kind of certain time it'll start to get lively?
We had a churchyard near us that very much the same sort of thing, but it was 10 o'clock in the evening. It changed, and the interesting thing with that was it didn't just seem to be, I mean, you might think, in the winter, pitch black by that time, no sunlight whatsoever. So of course, the later it gets and the darker it gets, the scarier it will get. But that theme seemed to continue even throughout the summer. So there's still a bit of daylight left at 10 o'clock, and the atmosphere would change even then. So really weird. It was always around 10 o'clock, give or take, sort of 5-10 minutes either side. But as you say, it would be the atmosphere change that we'd notice, and it would be to the point of, something feels a bit unusual here now. Check the time. Around 10 o'clock.
We've had 3 or 4 other teams come into Loudon-Kirk Ways, and we also didn't give them any info, but they were kind of said the same. You can sense the atmosphere changing in here after, usually it's around about the 9 o'clock mark when they start to say that. I just find it really weird because obviously, as I say, Spirit's 24/7. They don't clock in and clock out sort of thing. Well, we don't think they do.
Who knows? But I think that sort of thing continues throughout the day. I just think where places are generally speaking busier during the day and there's more going on, you've got the sound of traffic, you've got all these other things. If an atmosphere was to change, I don't know, half past 4 in the afternoon down at the booze aisle in Tesco's, it's like, who's going to notice that? Because you're just in a busy environment, you're not going to appreciate that. But if it happens, I don't know, if the shop was empty or the area was completely empty, you'd feel that atmosphere change then.
So if you're saying Spirit's working 9 to 5, there actually, believe it, there are people that actually believe that. Maybe not the 9 to 5, but they do certain. I've spoken to a couple of people in the past, years, that actually do believe, they don't do anything during the day. It's only night time, night shift or that kind of stuff.
It's not that unusual to think of though, because if you think of it as, well, just look at even in nature the amount of wildlife that's nocturnal. I mean, I know we're looking at something slightly different. But is there potential that it is nocturnal type things that come out? Is there an element of that with it? So I don't think the night shift patterns necessarily completely outlandish, but yeah, I've wondered that before. Is it just that they're nocturnal creatures or entities or whatever?
I know we tend to investigate the night, and a lot of teams do. We've done investigations during the day, same as yourselves. I think the thing about doing it at night time is there's more an atmosphere, adds to the kind of spookiness for anybody that's watching. And so, plus, I love nighttime anyway. I'm one of these morbid people.
Yeah.
I love the dark and all that kind of stuff. But I think it kind of adds to the atmosphere for those watching that you're in the middle of a castle or a graveyard that 1 o'clock in the morning, you can't see your hand in front of you, basically, and you can, what's going to pop out the trees or whatever. But carrying on with your video, that's what we're going to talk about. A wee bit sidetracked, whatever. The Elizabethan mansion. I watched you doing it before, and we spoke about it before. I don't know what it is about the place, but I just find it fascinating. And then you've got the conspiracy room, and I think before we were talking about how that's where the gentlemen met and women were not allowed, and that's where manly stuff was discussed. And it was the shadow under the door that I just found mind blown, basically.
I mean, that was chilling at the time, but to watch it back on the footage as well and know that it wasn't our eyes playing tricks, whatever that was there. And I mean, we've tried to debunk it. We've tried to. James, I think in the video said that it was quite windy, and it could have been that the door was slightly rattling on its. But again, if the door was rattling, it would be going on that axis rather than that axis.
Mm-hmm.
So which wouldn't affect, sort of make the same patterns as the shadow. So yeah, I certainly think we've caught something there that is certainly unexplainable. I'd like for someone to try and put an explanation through. Do you think no one else was upstairs?
I don't know. My theory is, and I might be totally wrong. See, I think I said this in the last show as well that we talked about it, but it was maybe one of the servants who was trying to eavesdrop.
Yeah, maybe. I mean that's I think Sophie said that at the time it was like someone was just outside the door that wasn't allowed in, but was just kind of, like you say, eavesdropping, just trying to get a little bit of an insight into what was going on inside the room. But which again, as we were saying earlier, would kind of match up with the history of the place as well, the history of that particular room.
Aye, because no women were allowed, and so obviously people were curious what went on behind, what went on in that room. So I think it's very, very likely that, during those times that people would kind of try and, we see it in films and that, the ear up to the door and stuff, and what they're talking about, and the way the shadow moves, it seems to tie in with that. Somebody, coming up, stopping briefly, and then moving away kind of thing again, I can't hear anything, this is a waste of time, I'm off.
It completely looks like that. And that was the impression we got at the time, was that there was someone outside the door just wanting to, just catch a bit of the conversation that's going on inside. But obviously didn't want to hang around too long, they get caught.
Well, that's it, in case the master caught them or whoever it was. You open the door and you go into the hall. What was there any kind of atmosphere in the hallway? Because it seemed quite, pardon the pun, it seemed quite dead.
Yeah, there wasn't anything out there. It's not like we walked out into a cold draft or anything. There was nothing out there. It was completely normal. And the only thing I'm really annoyed with, at the bottom of the hallway there, we actually had a camera, but it was facing about 90 degrees in the other direction, down one of the other corridors. So it's frustrating because we could have recorded whatever it was, but it was just, again, unless you place a camera every single angle in a place, you're never going to catch everything. But something interesting with that is we never heard and I went through all the audio on that other camera we had outside, and there was never any footsteps or any sounds or anything out in the corridor when that shadow was there. So
there was another team downstairs, is that right? But obviously
yeah, so there's another team downstairs. And again, that's another.
They were all accounted for.
Yeah, yeah, and that was another one where we had the camera outside, and we could hear when they came out of the room downstairs, which was after we'd seen the shadow anyway. So again, that rules out that there was some kind of trick of the light from downstairs or anything like that.
I think Elevator Scott Caldwell. There's an estate we did, I don't know, about 3 years ago now, Laura, I think, Sarah. It's an old abandoned mansion house, and the stairwell is quite active, and we did get a lot of activity in the stairwell, but the remains, the framework of the old lift is there. Obviously there's nothing left of it, there's a framework is there, and we investigated. I was listening to it back, and I think this is what Laura's referring to, but I could hear a noise in the back. It goes on for about 10 or 12 seconds. Now, there's no electricity in this building, nothing, it's just a shell, it's just a stone shell. But I could hear a noise, and at first I thought it sounded like somebody pushing some kind of trolley along a corridor. But then the more I listened to it, I heard a kind of ping at the end of it, the old-fashioned ping used to get in the lifts. And then I listened to it more and more and thought, that's mechanical. That sounds like a lift. And then you hear the ping very, very slightly at the end of it. And I just couldn't work out, because there's nothing in that building. And at the time we recorded it, we were all in the same section. We were in the sort of bottom floor of the stairwell. There was nobody walking about, and you could hear a ping. And I thought, that's, that is that residual. Somebody's still using that lift.
I mean, that's basically a textbook residual capture, isn't it? Pretty much, is an event from the past replaying itself. That's and again, if you look at it from a critical mindset as well, what natural sound is going to sound like a mechanical noise and then a ping? There's nothing really.
And there was nothing outside. Like, it's a 280-acre estate, and there's, I don't know, about half a dozen old buildings that are on the just stone shells, basically. There was nothing outside. The nearest road is maybe half a mile away, and it's a country road, so it's not like it's a motorway or anything like that. You'll get a lot of traffic. It's a deserted country road, basically. But it was just when we were hearing it, like, what the hell? And then I heard the ping. So that's a lift. That's right beside the lift, And it's these things, look, no doubt your team's the same. It's where you get things like that.
And it's the connections that are drawn between things. That's where the magic is, where, you are able to tie certain things together and make those connections.
And you're able to join the dots, and it starts to... Because I've always said, paranormal's a puzzle. And we'll get, we'll get different bits and pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, and maybe one day we'll eventually fit them all together. Nobody knows how many pieces are in that puzzle.
Well, that's it. I think it's like a jigsaw puzzle, but we've got no corners or edges to it. We don't know how big it is. There's no boundaries with it.
We can fart about as you do with a normal jigsaw. And try and fit bits in here, and they don't fit. And maybe one day, there can be millions and millions of pieces to it.
That's it. We don't know. I think that's one of the most intriguing things, is that there is no boundaries to it that we know of.
Whereas when you get these cabbages that turn around and say, "I've solved the paranormal. I have solved the mystery. Tune into my channel and hear the story. Buy my book, and I will tell you what it's like." Paranormal explained.
Yeah.
I'm an expert now, because I've investigated twice, and I've met ghosts and stuff like that. they told me all that. This guy had a sit-down chat with two ghosts who explained everything to him, and he shoved it in a book,
How convenient.
It's good, $29.99 on Amazon and eBay. Go buy, but you will get people who run out and buy it. Oh, I'm going to get that. Get Santa to bring me that kind of thing. And you think, what a cabbage. But that's me just ranting. It's another one of my pet hates in the paranormal. These cauliflowers that say, I'm an expert and I've solved the mysteries of the universe. Say, no, you haven't. You're a tool. You're just a screwdriver with no end, basically. Do you know what I mean? Anyway,
following from that, I will be using the term cabbage to describe people from now on. I've never heard that one, or cauliflower as well.
Well, you need to, because you need what you're saying these days, don't you? All this PC and all the rest, all these beige people, as Billy Connolly calls them, they're all beige. These cabbages that sit in an office and write new rules. You can't say this. You can't say bus. Women conductor, or whatever. You can't say waitress and all the rest. It's just getting nuts, basically. And they took the gollywog off the jam jars. Mind that, the marmalade jars, they took the gollywog off them as well. That was the start of it.
that was the trigger for it all.
It was all downhill from there, my friend. Trust me. The gollywog went first, and then that was it. Total Armageddon. Anyway, stop ranting on and talk about your video. I didn't make notes for nothing, I didn't spend 5 minutes writing notes for nothing, I could have been doing something else just for like putting up my Christmas lights. But we'll not go there. I was want to talk about did anybody get the shadow under the door? You were on the room. Did anybody get any feelings or anything inside the room?
Nothing outside the room. No, it was. It was one of those where
not inside the room.
Inside the room, certainly there were feelings in there. We recorded a temperature drop of about 15 degrees. Which just came and went. And there were really bizarre feelings in there. It felt like at points we were in a room full of people. As weird as that is to describe when there's only three of us in there. It certainly seemed like whatever activity was going on there, it was both inside the room and outside the room. And we certainly think that they were both connected. It wasn't like what was outside the room was doing its own thing and what was inside. They certainly seemed to have some kind of connection together.
It's no weird at all. Just theories, it might sound weird. It's no weird at all. I've had that with Loud and Kirk. If there's a farm nearby that's tied connections to Kirk, and we're looking up to have access to the farm. One day I was up just for a visit with one of the guys that run it, and there was only him and I in the courtyard, shall we say. And I'd say to him, you always get the feeling that there's people walking about. And he said, "No, this guy's got nothing to gain. He doesn't publicise anything." He says, "I get that feeling constantly up here when he does a lot of wandering about." And he said, "When I'm walking about, I always get the feeling that there's just people going about their business, but what they would have been doing back in the day." So we have had that feeling many times, loud, and you always feel there's people just wandering about, and that you're actually not alone. So it doesn't sound that weird, young man. It's
a strange feeling though, because when you get that in place, it's not always. It's not even like you can hear the people there or you can see them. It's another sense that's obviously picking up on something. You can just feel the presence. I suppose the closest way to do it is if you were to stand in a room full of people and the lights went off, you'd know there were other people there, even if everyone was completely silent. Mm-hmm. Whether it's just picking up on, I don't know, the flow of air around bodies, and I don't know. It's a bizarre sort of feeling when that happens.
It is a weird feeling. No doubt skeptics and that was just you're nuts. You're a cabbage, basically, and or a cauliflower, whatever. But you definitely do feel, when there's other kind of people, spirits, whatever you want to call them, but they're still people, and they're just kind of wandering about. It's moving on to, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong. I know I thought that when I was writing it down, because I'm Scottish and I'm thick as hell. Roy, I can't, the asylum, Rosby.
The asylum, yeah, well done.
Rosby, is that how you say it?
As far we've been guessing as well for about 3 years, but yeah, as far as I'm aware.
So it's one of these locations that you're not quite sure, but you just take a.
I think it's rule speak, but I mean, I always find if you mumble it when you say it, no one questions.
Laura's put a comment up. She said, "I've just clicked on." Laura's got a fear of cabbages. She just dreamed one night, and I'm going to tell them, Laura. I don't care if you're watching. Totally unparanormal related. Well, it might be. I don't know. But she was tied to a tree, and people were throwing cabbages at her. So ever since then, she's had this kind of fear. I might try it. I might tie to a tree, just chuck cabbages at and see what happens. Basically. But so that's what she says. You said cabbage. So she's got a fear of cabbages. She doesn't run away from them in Tesco or anything like that. Stuff like that. She's just kind of. She's not keen on them, basically. So, get back to the asylum. It was the smells thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Because you say before it that, most people associate hauntings with, stuff moving, things like that. But it's not very common that they'll associate it with smells and scents. And I can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they certainly happen. I mean, I'm sure you've probably had it before with smells in places that don't have any sort of obvious origin, and we've had it a handful of times. But it's one of those really, I find really interesting parts of hauntings where there is a scent involved, like perfume or whatever, because for our bodies to smell that, it's got to be particulates in the air. And if there's no origin for them, then what is it we're smelling? I just find that the actual science behind that, how would that work, is really interesting. But it certainly happens. I mean, in that asylum, we smelt sort of like medical gloves, like that sort of rubbery latex smell. And then that suddenly vanished, and then minute or two later, we smelt like really strong body odor, as if someone hadn't had a shower for about 35 years, which we had all had a shower within 35 years, so it was none of us. But it was just one of those things where it came and went, and it was an abandoned hospital that hadn't been used for 20 odd years, but we know what an abandoned building smells like. You get used to the smells and stuff, and both of these were very out of place from where they came from, and very distinctive smells as well. So yeah, really weird, and it was interesting how they just appeared and disappeared just as quickly.
Mm-hmm. Aye, see, that happened to me. That's how I related to that. That happened to me, Loud and Curt again. We do go other places, not just Loud and Curt, but it's it's our kind of favourite place. I had the headphones and the blindfold on, and the rest of the team, the girls were there. They were about 10, 15 feet away from me. And I was on live, and I got a really strong smell of perfume. And I thought one of the girls had come over and stood beside me. But this happened, I got, I think, 2 or 3 times. I got this whiff of perfume, to the blindfold off. But all the girls, none of them had moved. And none of them had perfume on anyway. But I definitely smelt it. And then when I was standing beside the group of them, I got it smell again. And I says to them, can you smell that? And, no, I can't smell it, but I could smell this strange. It was definitely some kind of eau de toilette or something. I don't know what they used back in the day. But as you'd say, it's really weird and it just comes out of nowhere. And
yeah, we've had the smell of lavender before in a church, which again was bizarre because Sophie smelt it, and then I smelt it about I don't know, probably 5 minutes later. But it was to the point that I could turn my head that way and I could smell it. I turn it that way, couldn't smell it. It was just like in a pocket in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, we had one about 2 weeks ago. We went out to a place to investigate. We were down in the basement area, which has like a little museum there. And all of a sudden, it smelled like almost sort of a weedy sort of cannabis smell, mixed with tobacco. It's a very unusual sort of scent. We turned the lights on down there, and the smell where this was next to the cabinet with a load of clay pipes in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've not looked into it yet, but I was quite curious to see what sort of tobacco they would have smoked back in those days, whether it was more of a herbally kind of content than sort of what standard tobacco would be today, just to see if that was, because it was, like I say, it was more of a herbally sort of smell than sort of just normal tobacco smoke. May have been something, but it was just, yeah, well, that's it. We looked outside. We tried to find out if someone was outside that was smoking it. Couldn't find anything. So, yeah, I'm quite curious to see what sort of tobacco would have smelt like back in those days, just to see if it could have been what we smelled. It's just weird. It was in front of the cabinet with the clay pipes. Like I say, it just vanished afterwards. It was there for about 10 minutes and then vanished.
See, that's it. I have two comments about I stuck them up in a wee. Saying it didn't smell once outside. That's the thing, you know. If you get this sort of smell, usually it will linger. You know, it might get less strong, but it'll still kind of, you know, you'll still get a wee whiff it, as they say. But if it just to vanish, Sophie says smells and feelings of major players in the paranormal world. Do you think? How can I put a question for you? I mean, we all know that we do investigations that sometimes spirit don't want to play ball. They could be standing there watching you, laughing at you, whatever, but you'll not get any results of them. So do you think maybe when, you know, a person, you know, in a team, whatever, picks up on a smell or a feeling, that's their kind of, because everybody, you know, Barry Joy, I was talking to him last week, he says we're all psychic to some kind of degree. Some more than others, obviously. Do you think maybe when it's a smell or a feeling that's maybe our psychic side kind of picking up on them, even though they don't want to be noticed? If that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And I certainly think that certain people have more of a connection to certain locations than others. Whether that be that whoever's haunting the particular place or whatever kind of spirit, they just has a particular interest in a certain person and doesn't really care for anyone else. Same as we have, I mean, just as living people, we prefer some people over others. It's just sort of based on past experience with people who maybe look or sound or act similar to people. You just subconsciously have these sort of more attractions to certain people. And if there is a consciousness that sort of survives in a metaphysical way, then makes sense that they'd retain those kind of sort of mentalities. And yeah, I think they can show themselves or affect certain people more so than others in environments. And it can manifest in so many different ways as well. It can be something as sort of from a feeling all the way through to, yeah, like you say, sort of having smells or even being touched by something. Yeah, it can just manifest in so many different ways. But I certainly think that each individual person can have a completely different experience at the same location.
Well, we're selling what is saying. Smell of fresh paint. Stairs is a very, very small village in Ayrshire. It's about half an hour away from us, but this is literally middle of nowhere. It's like two houses, a pub and a church, if you're lucky, basically. We've done the church a couple of times. The last time we were there, we had the strong smell of paint. Now, the windows were standing, they're all sealed windows, you know. So obviously, and the window, they hadn't been painted. And so the smell wasn't coming from the inside of the church because everything's sealed up. And we just couldn't understand it because there was a strong smell of paint. But
yeah,
there was nothing. You know, there's
Again, I'm
nothing.
assuming that was that one that came and went as well, was it?
I think it came in with Laura Bailey. I remember the paint. I can't mind if it faded or it just kind of. But we thought, that's paint we can smell. How the hell's there paint here? So you start
Yeah.
looking about the building, the gutters, and all the rest of it, you know. And there's nothing's been painted here. So they wonder where it comes. And then at the asylum, Sophie get touched as well. But Nina,
Yeah,
you.
so that was another one where it was like a chain of events, because it started off with the smell of the medical gloves. Then Sophie got touched. Then we heard sort of the sound of movement, and it's almost like someone was in the corridor with us. Then the smell of the BO appeared, and then sounded like something went upstairs. Like we heard scuffling upstairs, and then whatever was there vanished. So it was that succession of events over the course of a few minutes
I
that
mean,
was really quite interesting.
the BO could make, you know, could certainly signify or saying male, but women get BO as well, I suppose, you know. But just when Sophie get touched and, you know, you and the other chap weren't touched, I thought, to me, that's a male. You know, that's a man.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, again, this is looking at the history of it. This is a place that's going back, I think, to the late 1800s, and it's had all kinds of people in there over the years. I mean, it could have been anyone, but yeah, again, that's one of those ones where I think it depends sort of just how you interpret the activity. I mean, I certainly got that impression it was more of a male kind of thing. But again, it's just how you interpret it, just the impressions and the feelings you get from certain events.
And we were saying, just came back to the puzzle bit, you know, the jigsaw puzzle, you had the smell of the gloves, you had the BO, and then you had Sophie getting touched, you know, or poked, whatever. And so you think, well, if you put these three together, that's, you know, a very small puzzle, that kind of adds up to a male, whether it's right or no. But it's as we said earlier on, you can try and put them together. Laura's saying, lovely to see you again. Look, Gaffer, I'll see you tomorrow night. No, I'll see you tomorrow. .net. Okay, Doc. Thanks for coming in. I'll talk to you tomorrow. You're also away for an early night. So that's what it suggested to me. Again, might be wrong. Don't know, but all the wee pieces seem to fit together. But then, you know,
it's kind of like whatever we experience is like it's almost like looking through frosted glass. You can kind of make out something, but you've got to fill in the blanks. You get certain bits of information. You've just got to try and build the picture up yourself.
And I feel that sometimes though that can be, I don't want to say misleading, because you know sometimes people fit the pieces together to suit themselves or to go with the, you know, what's going on or the atmosphere, whatever you want, the surroundings basically. And you think, well, you know, gloves, she get touched, that was a guy, that makes sense, so we'll go with that one. You know, yeah. But it's obviously used to do. That's the other thing I like about you guys.
I think everyone's guilty of that, though. I think the only time anyone could say they're completely guilt-free of that is if they literally just presented what happened and made no comments on it. Because any time you try and link a piece of activity to a part of the building's history or someone that used to be there, you're automatically filling in blanks based on the information you've got, which I don't think. The trouble is there's no way of proving it one way or the other. You're only going on the information you've got and going by sort of the likelihood and probability of it. But yeah, I also think that is, I mean, that's what ghosts have been for centuries. You're going in looking at ghost stories, and I think there has always, and there will always be, that element of the classic ghost story that's tied with investigating as well. So yeah, it's such a difficult subject to approach anyway, and I think there will always be an element of filling in blanks with maybe information that's not 100% sort of proven. But it's like to give any kind of human connection to what's experienced. That's how you do it, I think.
I've done it myself. I did it. I'll stay a comment up in 2 seconds, Sophie, though. And I've done it myself. You know, it's one prime example is it's the old toll booth wind in Edinburgh. It's on the Royal Mile. It was part of the old toll booth prison, which was a notoriously brutal prison in Edinburgh. And there's an alleyway that still contains part of the original wall of the prison. But the first time we'd ever went down it, I get the strong feeling of a woman, maybe early 20s, cowering in a corner. And she was kind of ashamed and stuff. I don't know what the hell. I told Barry John about it. And I said, I don't know why I picked up Barry, but I got the feeling that she was cowering in this corner, hiding from people. And she was ashamed of who she was and what she was doing. And so I just assumed she was a kind of lady of the night sort of thing. You know, but it could have been that she, in her lifetime, she was maybe homeless or something like that, you know, or whatever. But you just assume, oh, she must have been a lady of the night. But then you could be wrong, as you say. You're assuming it.
It's like we had we recorded we heard and recorded the sound of two female voices at a location. And the room that's just above, which is where we thought the voice came from, was known as the witch's room. And it's apparent that there was it's sort of more based on legend than actual fact, but it's apparently that a witch sought refuge there after sort of being hunted during the witch trials. We heard the sound of the female voice coming from what sounded like that particular area. And we obviously said, was it possibly the sound of the witch? All the information we got is a female voice was recorded in that part of the building. Tying it to the witch is a long shot when you think how many people have passed through that building over the years, but at the same time, it's tying it to an existing ghost story there. So it's open to interpretation, really. I think the key is with anything like that is leaving it open. Don't say one way or the other conclusively. It's just throwing ideas around, and I think open to everybody's own way of looking at it.
It's the same with Greyfriars. I mean, Greyfriars Kirk. I'll put your comment up, Sophie, don't worry, we'll go up. It's the same as Greyfriars Kirk in Edinburgh, with George Mackenzie and the Mackenzie Poltergeist, which was a name that was made up by Jan Henderson to go with a book he was writing about the Covenanters prison. He needed a name for the entity that's in there, and he said, well, I'll call it Mackenzie Poltergeist. So, a lot of the investigations are banned now, but back in the day when they're allowed, so many teams get in and they would hear a noise, or somebody would get pushed or something. That's Mackenzie Poltergeist. It must be. But it could have been Tom, Dick or Harry, or Mary or Bert, or whoever.
Yeah.
George Mackenzie.
The actual linking it to George Mackenzie, was that was just originated from a book then? There's no...
Aye, what it was, the Covenanters prison sits adjacent to the Kirkyard now. The Covenanters prison was quite a brutal place back in the day when it was a prison. The Covenanters were held there. There was 1,200 of them held there, and the guards were notoriously brutal. And this was before the tombs were in there. But there's over 3,000 documented reports of attacks. That's why it's now locked. Because in 1 month alone, there was 11 ambulances called to the Kirkyard for people passed out, fainted, people were reported getting pushed, punched, scratched, you name it, And so the guy who owns City of the Dead Tours, he wrote a book called The Ghost That Haunted Itself. He decided to write a book about the attacks in the prison, and which is now, Edinburgh City Council, they'd had enough, they say, right, we're just going to lock the gates now. We're fortunate enough to have access through City of the Dead Tours, but Jan Henderson, he wrote the book and he said, well, I need to give this thing a name. I need to call it something. So he called it the Mackenzie Poltergeist. Simple as that. And even though George Mackenzie is buried in Greyfriars, he's buried in the Kirkyard. He's not buried in the prison. And, there's all the stories about the Black Mausoleum. which people say was Mackenzie's tomb. It's not Mackenzie's tomb. The Black Mausoleum is the burial vault of the Dundas family, who were a well-to-do family, well respected, did nothing to do with George Mackenzie. So our theory is it is one of the, and I've spoken to Jamie Christoffel about this, who runs the tour company. Our theory is it's one of the guards, the old guards, for when the prison was a prison. He still sees the territory as his, and anybody that comes in to him is an intruder, basically. But that's where the Mackenzie poltergeist originates for.
I was aware of the stories. I knew bits and pieces, but I never knew the actual origin of it. The guard certainly makes more sense from it historically, doesn't it?
I've spoke to Jamie about it, and the attack, the Mackenzie tomb's been broke into twice, and whenever it's been broke into, the activity in the prison seems to ramp up. We've investigated the prison. There is an atmosphere in there, but we always ask ourselves, is there an atmosphere there because we know the history of the place? So are we creating the atmosphere, up here? Or is there, you can definitely feel when you go through the gate, it does change. But people say as well, if it's one of the guards in the prison, why is it ramping up when George Mackenzie's tomb gets broken into? I say, well, basically because Mackenzie was their boss, back in the day. And so they're seeing that as disrespectful to their boss. So it angers them, so they act up. They take, they're angry, so they just pick on the first person to see, basically.
Yeah, that makes more sense. But again, that's like we were saying earlier, it's how you interpret what goes on, and both of those are two different interpretations. The one that you've just told me certainly makes more sense, sort of logically. But first I've heard about that. That's quite interesting.
Well, there you go. Jamie's worked there for 15 years, and he's there all times, day and night. 6-7 days a week, and we've done a lot with Jamie. And I've said to him a few times, in your 15 years here, he wanders the courtyard day and night. I says, in your time here, have you ever experienced? He says, nothing at all. I've never experienced anything in 15 years of wandering about here. And do we believe George Mackenzie still roams grave? No. George Mackenzie's, he's gone elsewhere. But the amount of teams will come in and say, when the Mackenzie poltergeist attacked me, I was bitten, I was scratched, he touched my bum, whatever. It was Mackenzie poltergeist. Say, no, it doesn't exist. It's no real. Sorry to shatter some people's bubbles, but this is what Sophie wrote. This is what I'm going to ask you about as well. Trip to Scotland, their bonny land of the gods. Bring an umbrella and a woolly jacket.
Oh, that'll be much needed, yeah. Yeah, I think that'll be on the cards at some point, the next year or the year after. Yeah, we've got a couple of places in Wales next year we're going to. So we're going to do a couple of days over there, then So we've got loads planned for next year. Can't wait.
Well, you'll need to swap the hat for a woolly hat.
I'll put it over the top.
You'll need to do something. Thermal long johns or whatever the hell. No, you're welcome up to anything, young man.
Don't you worry. We've been out enough winter investigations to know that long johns and thermals are a key staple of any ghost hunter's kit bag.
Lifesavers sometimes up here. It's actually turned really cold the past. I don't know what it's like down your way, but up here the last 24, 40 it's turned really, really chilly, shall we say? You know what I mean? But that's the story of George Mackenzie. Moving on, I like to talk about the RAF matching. I found all your videos fascinating, but it was the Nissan hut. Tell us about the Nissan hut. I found that really interesting.
That's a weird place anyway, because we've been to a load of different RAF bases over the years, and some of them are quite big, quite extensive, loads of buildings. This one is essentially just the corner of what was the original RAF base there. I think there's probably about 5 or 6 buildings left there now. So it's only a snapshot as to what used to be there. And one of them is this old Nissen hut. And we were contacted by one of our viewers on Instagram who basically said, have we ever been there? I'd never heard about the place before. He just said, oh, might be worth a look. We had a weird experience. So we went there, had 3 main things happen. First of which was during the daytime still, we were just filming our introduction to the video. And in the doorway of the hut, James thought he saw someone standing there, just watching us. Turned around, they'd vanished. Then during the investigation, Sophie saw someone poke their head around the door, exactly the same place. And we'd completely forgotten about James's experience by that point. She said it was like just a featureless head that poked around the doorway. And then I was there, and it sounded like something had just run up on me. You can hear the sound of the footsteps on the ground, on the concrete as well. And it was all in this doorway. It must have been, I don't know, a couple of meters by a couple of meters square area where just all of the activity in that place seemed to surround.
I just found it fascinating, Sophie, because I was what Sophie said on the video and about the head poking around. And, that happened to me once, Loudon again, sorry, but, it was a brief second. So this is how I kind of related to what Sophie said, that it was a wee girl poked through the side of a tree, or a big bush kind of tree sort of thing, and it was like a split second. I happened to glance over, seen it, and she was gone. A second if even that, So what kind of atmosphere, because obviously you've had experiences, something happened to you in the same spot. Is there that kind of atmosphere that somebody's still maybe doing the rounds, keeping an eye on the place? Or
yeah, it was certainly, I'd say it was a heavy atmosphere there, but more so in the sense of just there being something there. It wasn't necessarily a bad feeling. I didn't feel a very, very heavy, very sort of tense atmosphere. And I just think that's the environment you get sometimes when there is activity occurring. I just think that's how our bodies interpret that environment. But yeah, certainly the impression we got was that there was at least someone or a group of people that were just keeping an eye over the place. I mean, it was obviously a military base, so the most obvious would be that they're military personnel there doing patrols. But yeah, we never really sort of got to the identity of any of them, but that's certainly what we felt like. There was always someone watching out there, just keeping an eye over it. Whether they were conscious, whether it was more sort of a residual thing, or whether there was more sort of an intelligent thing, I think they had more of an intelligence, and it was aware of sort of the modern world, and it just felt a responsibility to just continue looking after that place. But yeah, it was certainly an interesting time being there.
It looked into just about the interpretation. I would say, again, just my interpretation, that, for the fact that the head pops around the corner and then goes away again, to me that suggests that somebody is, it's an intelligent spirit and they're keeping an eye on the place. They're like, well, who's that up there fighting? And away they go. So I think,
yeah, makes complete sense. Yeah. And there was someone standing there as well, watching us earlier when James saw them. Which again, if they're standing there and he thought it was like someone was watching us through the doorway, so again, it would make sense that they're aware of us being there and they're just keeping an eye on us.
I mean, no doubt you've had it before. You've been at a location and you felt like somebody's. I know I've certainly had it. You feel like somebody's just standing there, watching you. It's in front of you, at the back of you. You just get the feeling that they're sort of like what he's up to, basically, what he's doing, why he's here. And once they're satisfied, then they move on, or they go to another bit or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's happened places before as well. What we were saying earlier, where you can go to somewhere and have a load of activity, and you go back a second time or a third time, and you get nothing there. I wonder if that's that whoever's there remembers you from before, realizes that you're not going to be any trouble, they've already sort of investigated you, worked out what you're about, so they've got no real interest in you being there anymore.
That's what I was going to ask you. Would you get back to see, because obviously whoever this spirit was, I don't know, just say it's a male, whoever this gentleman was, he's checked you out, he knows you are fine. So would he appear again if you were to get back, or would it be a case of, like I've seen them before, as you say, they're fine, I'll let them do their thing?
We did go back.
Well, you did get back?
Yeah, we did go back, and we didn't have anything happen at all.
Right.
So I think we're saying I'd like to go back for a third time just to sort of see whether not having anything was just a fluke or whether that just seems to be the way it is now. And like you say, they've worked us out and realised that we're not going to be any trouble there. But yeah, we went back a second time and not anything at all.
You need how close is it to where you are?
I think it's about an hour away, so it's not massively.
That's nothing.
Yeah,
40 minutes, even that. You do that in half an hour. Fine. I think you should get back, because I think that'd be really interesting if you did.
Yeah, certainly after going the second time and not having anything, it'd be interesting to go a third time, especially after we've left. We must have left about a year since our last visit there. So it'd be interesting to sort of see if the passage of time sort of changed anything, whether they may have forgotten about us and we've gone back. Yeah, I'd be quite curious to see what we get.
And even just to get back and say, hello, we're back again. I don't know if you remember us or not.
Yeah.
Could you please touch that box or something if you remember us, just kind of, if you're returning back to say, I know I've not seen you in a long time, how are you? So maybe that's what they're after. Maybe doing that, I'm not telling you how to investigate or whatever, don't get me wrong. But, you might get some kind of response.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried that before, trying to go and almost build a relationship with certain places, which I think it can go one way or the other. I think it all depends on how invested they are in you. If they don't want to talk and they're not interested, not much you can do. You can't force them to speak to you or do anything. But then I do know people, and certainly we have in the past sort of built up some kind of a relationship with whatever's there. And it does almost feel like they remember you when you go back in a very strange sense, but it does feel like you're just picking up from where you left off last time.
Right. Well, that's why we do Loudon so much. We've been doing Loudon for about 3 years. And people say, do you not get bored with it? Say, no, because we're trying to build a reputation. We know who's there, and for what we've picked up, they know who we are. I mean, I've had a couple of investigations. I've said, I was up at the farm, I was up at the house, and we've had EVPs back saying Scott was up at the house. Scott's been up at the farm. And, they've asked for Sarah, asked for Laura. We've got it all recorded. So, and I think it's important. But don't get me wrong, we do. Look, we'll go to one location, jump about sometimes, but we like to concentrate Loudon, because I think that if you build that, once you get that bond with a certain spirit or spirits, whatever, then you can start to build for them and they get to recognise you. Do you ever find that the least visited is the most active?
I wouldn't say that there's certainly an element of truth to that. Yeah, we've always found that some of the most well-visited places, the ones that always make the top 10 lists of haunted places in the country, and just some of the ones
that
have been done to death.
There's actually a post on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, the 10 most haunted places in the UK, and I put up a simple comment saying, who says it's the 10 most haunted? Because no one been visited.
How do you even rate somewhere the most haunted? What scale are we using?
How do you know? It could be that, your top maybe number one is a castle, but you could have a wee Kirkyard 10 miles along the road that's more active than that castle. So is that Kirkyard more haunted than the cat? Is when you put the list up and say, this is the 10. You think, no, it's no, maybe they're active, fair enough, give you that much, but are they the most active? It's, I don't know. I just find that the less visited, I think Spirit gets lonely. So if they don't get visited,
I certainly think there's an element of that, and I also think, and we've certainly wondered as well, if locations almost have somewhat of like a battery life with it, that if they're constantly visited and they're constantly sort of interacting with people, that the energy there sort of dissipates over time, which is why some of these places that have been investigated hundreds and hundreds of times don't really seem to deliver as much as maybe they did 15, 20 years ago, but because just the energy has been depleted there. And the places that haven't been visited are sort of fresh, and there's a lot of energy stored there that's not really been tapped into yet.
Mm-hmm. We read that with Caldwell. Caldwell's an abandoned building, and we found teams on Facebook that had, the Urbex Explorers and stuff, but we could not find anything about any paranormal investigations being done on it. Any teams or we found nothing. I'm not saying there hadn't been. We just couldn't find any information. Yeah. And when we went, we found it was. We were there for about 2 months, off and on. Our investigations were well into double figures, and the amount of activity we got was unbelievable. So that's what started me thinking, well, if nobody's ever investigated here, are these spirits just wanting somebody to talk to? Is it as simple as that? That nobody comes to visit us, you've came, so we'll talk to you. Or we'll do whatever.
And if say you're in a place where they get 5 people a week come in, asking the same questions, not bringing anything new to the table, what sort of incentive is there for them to come forwards?
There's no, they were sitting there thinking, how many stones do you want me to throw tonight? How many people do you want me to touch tonight, or would I have to do the night? Night shift again. And it might just be as simple as that. Nobody ever talks to them, so that's why you get more activity. I'm not saying I'm right. It's just, again, it's just a total theory.
Yeah.
There's another couple of places I want to ask you about before we wind up. The hospital, Knockton Hospital.
That was an interesting one. I mean, that's a massive, massive place. We only had time to investigate a little portion of it because it's just so big. But yeah, EVP was the main thing we got there. Really, really clear EVPs. And it's one of those places where you could say, okay, maybe there are. Objectively, you could say, okay, maybe there's people that have got on site there, but they've got a security perimeter that's constantly checked, and any sort of areas that have been broken into are patched up on the regular basis. We didn't see anyone else there whilst we were there. I can't see us missing someone had they been on site. And yeah, we recorded a load of EVP there, and heard voices as well, seemingly coming from nowhere. It's quite away from the nearest town or even farm, I think. So yeah, really, really bizarre, but really clear voices from there.
Yes, I'm not going to ask how you get in then.
Oh no, we arranged it with the owner. So, like I say, it's the couple that own it are the ones that sort of deal with the security aspect there. So they'll go around and, like I say, patch up any bits that have been broken in, and I'm assuming they've probably got CCTV cameras on the perimeter, just making sure that no one is sort of breaking in and damaging stuff. But yeah, no, we were there. We were supposed to be there.
Right, that's fine then. Legally then. You see, we don't have any. There's maybe a handful up here, if even that, buildings. I would love to. I said that to Sarah when I was watching it, because you were doing it. Looked like the basement, the big long corridor. I don't know if it was a basement, but the big long corridors, and you ended up in the X-ray room. I said to Sarah, just give me a torch and let me wander. I would love to wander down there, but we don't have any hospitals we've got up here. They're closed, or they're boarded up as a prison. They've got metal boards on all the windows, and the fences all ruining them, and all the rest of it. And there's no chance. I mean, there are teams that break into places. We don't, because you need to respect, the rules and regulations, basically.
Yeah.
But I would love to get there. There's one in Paisley. It's the old Paisley. Well, I think it's burned down now, but it was, and this place was massive. It was old Royal Alexandra Hospital. But the amount of activity that's been reported, they built flats. They converted some of the old buildings into flats. And we knew of 3 different people or 3 different houses who were trying to sell their house because of what was happening in the buildings. And it's a place, it was massive in its day, and I would love to get in. But we did go down one day for a look, but it was all boarded up, and the anti-climb paint on all the fences and everything. We thought, we're not even going to try. And when I see people like you in the building, I think, I need to go to England.
Yeah, I mean, some of them. There was another one we've been trying to get hold of in Wales. That's. I mean, the trouble is with a lot of these, they may well be owned, but it's trying to get hold of the correct person that owns it that you need to speak to arrange getting access to it. So, I mean, if you know, and the problem is if you know it's owned and it's quite widely publicised it's owned, you can't plead innocence and just turn up there. So yeah, I mean, some of them like the Rawsby Asylum, we just walked in there. I mean, I think the fence had been broken down for God knows how long. So that was just a case of walking the building essentially. But yeah, if there's any places where it's boarded up and you think, or we know it's owned by someone, then yeah, obviously just don't bother.
It's trying to find the Dalcaharn house up here was like that when we wanted to investigate it, and we spoke to people and said, well, it's owned by such and such, and well, how do we get hold of them? Oh, don't know. But he's going to be turning it into some kind of 5-star hotel, and they're not doing cheese and everything, so we didn't bother. But then we found out that you can actually, if you go on the other side there, that you can walk right in the building. I've been up a few times now, and it's still not been turned into a hotel. And I'm going back 2 years ago, we get told that it's not been turned into a hotel. I think the guy's just...
There's a lot of places like that.
He's just bought it and thought, no chance, I'm off. I'll just leave that there. I say, as you just said, look, the fences are done. You're no breaking in. And it's the same with Dalcaharn. The fences are done. There used to be metal panels on the doors, but they've all been ripped off, so you can just walk right in the door, which is good, but I want these big asylums with the long dark basements. That's what I want,
There's so few of them about now though that have access, or a lot of them I've noticed they've knocked down the vast majority of it and they've converted like the old admin blocks or a couple of the big wards into like flats. But yeah, they're very few and far between now to get hold of any of the big hospitals and the asylums especially.
I know it's what you see in America, the horror movies when they say don't go down there and you get down there, and the basement corridor is about 4 miles long and there's not one light. You've got wee torches. I'd love to do something like that. Call me old fashioned, I don't care, but I would certainly love to do that. There's just 2 things. Something Sophie said on the video that caught me, and I thought she's right when she was talking about abandoned buildings, the feeling you get in abandoned buildings, knowing what's happened there, what the building used to be, whether it was a hospital and the people that have came and went and worked there and stuff like that. And I found that very true to life.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the thing is with abandoned buildings, anywhere can just become abandoned. The house you live in all the way through to where you work, it could all just become abandoned at some point. And I think it's just knowing that as decrepit and as empty as they look at the moment, they were full of life at one point.
Mm-hmm. Sophie doesn't remember what she said.
That's like we do.
But no, you do. You sit and I was talking to somebody last week about it in person, and we were sitting, and you're thinking, it was Nicola from Whispering Souls. It was Halloween, actually. That's what it was. when we did Edinburgh, and we were. It was in Greyfriars actually, and I was standing talking to him. We were looking at the covenant, or the original gate on it, and we're saying, you imagine the amount of people that passed by, went through the gates, and St Giles Cathedral as well. We were standing there, and it still got the original doors on it. And I said, how many people do you think have been through the doors in the past 500-600 years? And and some people might think it's daft, but it's true. I mean, these places are abandoned buildings, as Sophie said. There's so much history in them.
Yeah, and every single person that was in there had their own problems, had their own worries, everything like that. They weren't just sort of caricatures of people; they were as real as you and I.
Exactly.
And is there any sort of remnants of them left in any of these places, which is what we're looking for?
Exactly. That's what we're looking for. It's the same as graveyards. You see headstones. I used to do before I get into paranormal. I don't know. I've always had a fascination for graveyards. Don't know why, but I have. And you walk by headstones and you say, "Oh, that's a nice one. Oh, look, that's nice. That's nice." But then I started to take the time to stop and read them. Well, these were all people. These their own character, their mother, son, father, whoever. They had their own lives, a job, and all the rest of it. And this is what's left to remind them, to remind us of them. And so that's why I always take the time to sit and, because some of them are fascinating. There's one, if you do get to Scotland and meet up with us, we'll take you to Greyfriars. There's one, this thing is massive. It's on the wall. It's in Greyfriars. How it worked was, if you were buried beside the wall, you were well off. The further in you were buried, the less well off you were, basically. But there's one massive one. It's a big family thing, and it's got the mother and the father and the kids, and the two kids died in infancy within a year of each other. Then the mother died, and then the father, he died some years later. So you start to wonder, I wonder what the kids died of.
Yeah,
because
you start building up a story behind them.
One was 2 and one was 3 or something. They were very, very young infants, basically, and they died within a year of each other. So you think, was it some kind of disease or something? Did they get plague or something like that? And then the mother died. Did she died shortly after? Was that maybe a broken heart, or did she have the same illness as the kids? How, if it was an illness, how did the father last so long? Because it was quite a gap. And so you, as you say, you start to build up a story about these people, and you wonder exactly what happened to them. History was the only thing I paid attention to. I actually get kicked out of history in school, believe it or not.
And look at you now.
I know, I've said that a few times. I hated history in school. I get kicked out in second year, but you're away. Matheson, you're out. You'll go and sit at a thick table, basically. Go and sit in the lunchbox, basically. My love for history is the main reason I joined Shadow. But that's what caught me on to use to Shadow Paranormal, Sophie. The history they involve in with their videos, in with the two of them intertwined. I think that's fascinating. But no, see, I love headstones and just reading them and recognising these people. And I find it's a shame when you go to graveyards, but there's one in London between Putney. I've got a friend who stays in Putney, and I used to go down and visit him. One night we were walking into Richmond, which is about 10-15 minutes from Putney, but we were walking through. It was a very, very small forest, and there was a path through it, and I looked through and I noticed headstones. I think I said this to you before, because you did a similar thing a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there's a few like that are just a graveyard sort of just out of nowhere, just headstones.
Aye.
Those sort of, they must be, whether they're sort of private burial plots or what, I don't know. But yeah, there are the odd ones dotted around like that are very unusual.
There is. I mean, this one was in the middle of a housing estate.
Yeah.
And there was a park next to it, a kids' kind of play park next to it. And I said to her, she says, "Hey," she says, "This is a graveyard." I was like, And then the more I looked about, there was another maybe half a dozen, 6, 10 headstones in this.
Yeah.
And to him, it was normal. I says, this is surrounded by houses. He says, aye. He says, you're in a graveyard. Thought, wow. It just, it boggles. That's why you go outside and see a wee graveyard between the estates. I will just stick some houses there as a graveyard, but don't worry. Just build the flats there, they'll be fine, Very, very bizarre. You think at least fence it off or put some kind of marker or something,
Yeah, you'd think so, but yeah, it's bizarre. Which makes it all the more intriguing as to who put them there, why are they there, why were they not important enough to be
recognised?
Like you say, yeah.
Even if they'd moved them because they knew we're going to stick a house in the state on top of that. Pardon me, school moving. But the last thing I want to ask you about is there's a place I've wanted to do for years, maybe next year, who knows, it's on my to-do list, was the Ram Inn.
Ah, yes.
I think it's one location. I know we're saying about locations that have been done over and over again. That is certainly one of them, that's been done, I don't know, many times. But I've always been fascinated with the ancient Ram Inn. How did you find it? I don't mean by sat-nav, I mean the place itself.
Yeah. It's certainly, it's got a very, very, it feels haunted when you're in there. It does feel like there's constantly something there. However, having said that, it's certainly from our investigation anyway, not as haunted or as active as people have made it out to be over the years. I think it's one of those places that over the decades has just gained this popularity, and I think there's so many stories and legends from there, even in terms of the experiences that people have had there over the time, with people getting attacked by something. I think a lot of them may be based on elements of truth. Maybe someone felt a shove and it's then blown up over the years into a full-on attack. And, how stories get over...
What do you call that? Chinese whispers or something?
Yeah. And I think even with the background and the history there, because there's a lot of stories that are basically the background for some of the ghosts that are supposed to haunt there. But really, if you start digging and looking into it, there's not really any sort of historical fact to back up any of those claims. So I certainly think I'm convinced that there is something strange going on there, but it's been massively blown out of proportion. And I think it is just I don't want to say a run-of-the-mill haunted inn, because I'll be playing it down, because any haunted inn's fascinating. But it certainly, in my opinion, doesn't deserve kind of the reputation it's had over the years.
What about John Humphreys? Do you think he's still? I know he passed away in 1994 or 5.
No, it was a couple of years ago. I think it was about 2016, 17, somewhere around there, I think.
I thought it was back in the 90s he passed.
No, it's only a couple of years ago.
Well, go that round, didn't I?
Yeah.
Me too. Do you think he still, because there was a place that was very, very dear to him, 2016 it was actually, you're right.
Oh, it was it? I can't remember. I knew it was a couple of years ago. Well, I say a couple of years ago. It's 8 years ago now, but yeah.
I know he lived there, obviously, and he had a very strong tie to the place, and he loved the place. You think he still is there?
I mean, if he were to be anywhere, it would be at the Ram Inn. I mean, I think from what I understand from him, that was his life essentially, pride and joy. He lived there since the 60s. So if he were to be anywhere, it would be at the Ram Inn. We didn't really feel that he was there, but I know other people claim to have felt that. But yeah, I can't think of anywhere else he'd be if he was to sort of return somewhere.
I've always wondered that, he passed away and what have you. I thought, it's the one, I've watched the investigations on it after he passed away, and you always think, well, and people say, oh, I think it's a priest that's meant to be there, and a witch, but it's just, it could have been a female servant that people were a female. Oh well, it's a witch, but it might not be. It might be, one of the former staff or something. But I've always felt it's the one place it's the one place he would be, if anywhere, and to still look after it. I don't think he'd do anybody any harm or whatever attacks are happening. I don't think he'd be responsible for it, but I do think he'd be still keeping a wee eye on the place. It meant that much to him, and and this life, and it probably mean that much to him, in the next one.
Yeah, certainly. I don't. Yeah, I mean, he saved the building from being demolished in the 1960s, and I'm sure that if it's any choice of his, that he'll, try and keep it going and look after it for as long as it can, even if he's not here in the flesh.
Well, so I've always wanted to investigate it, and maybe 2025 we'll get down to it. Who knows?
I'd certainly recommend it. It's a great place, even just the one to tick off the list of sort of to go to. It is really worth it. Like I say, from a perspective of investigating, I should imagine you'll get something there, but just keep your expectations more down here rather than up there.
We learned that after the Ivy House, because before we went to the Ivy House, no disrespect to it or anybody's been to it, I watched a few videos and people were saying, oh, footsteps and bodies getting dragged and all the usual. And so it took us about 6-7 hours or something to drive down. And so I was expecting, you're all hyped up. You're, well, this is going to be major. And we get nothing, basically, And I'm not saying it's no haunted. Maybe we were just there on the wrong night, as I said way earlier on. But we did come away we started a good time, great night, but a wee bit disappointed, because I think we were expecting much more. I think it's the same as East Drive. I'm still on the fence about East Drive. I know people say, oh, it's really haunted. Other people say, nothing there. It's been overdone, blah, blah, blah. The Black Monk, as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence to support the story of Black Monk who was executed and all the rest of it. So you think, well, is that all hype as well? So I think East Drive's on marvellous. We did have a chance 2 years ago to do it with GSI. They phoned me on the Monday and says, look, we're doing East Drive on Wednesday for free. We've been asked to do it. Come down.
Yeah.
But it was like 2 days. I thought, it's just, we get a babysitter and we couldn't do it. And I says, if you gave me maybe a week's notice, then it might have been doable, but no, 2 days, less than 2 days, no, it's no chance. What about you in East Drive before we wind up?
Yeah, I mean, I've investigated there a fair few years ago now. I never really was on the fence with it because I think I'd made my mind up quite a long while ago as to how I feel about it. I honestly don't think there's anything going on there. I think if there was anything happening, I think it was the late 70s, early 80s when the family living there had the alleged poltergeist activity. I think if there ever was any activity there, it would have stemmed from that point. But I mean, that ended a long while ago, and there was no real reports of a hauntings for about 2 or 3 decades. Until the early 2010s, when all of a sudden a film was made on it and the house was opened up for investigations, which just seemed a little bit coincidental to me that suddenly it's the most haunted place in the country despite not having anything happen for 30 years. So, but, who knows? That's just my take on it. And I'm firmly on the side of the fence of nothing's going on there.
To be honest with you, I'm tending to agree with you. As you say, all the years nothing happened and all that, and then all of a sudden the film comes out as an overnight media sensation. All this activity happening, all these teams. Oh, I've seen the black monkey walk down the stairs, and people get pulled up the stairs by mysterious hands. As we know that famous show, the guy gets yanked up the stairs. So that's what I'm going to say on that. So, as I say, I'm not saying it's no active. It probably was. When I say I'm on the fence, what I mean is that I say it was active at one point. X amount of years ago, something probably did happen. But is it active now? I wouldn't say so. No. I would.
No, I mean people have gone there and come away saying they've experienced things, but I mean everything that I've seen recorded, or the vast majority of things I've seen recorded there, does have alternate explanations, and you'll see when you're there as well. Like how thin all of the walls are. I mean, I think it must have been a 1950s, maybe a 1940s build. So it's got obviously quite thin walls. It's a semi-detached property as well. So any noises from next door can be heard quite easily. Obviously anything with EMF being sort of in the middle of a housing estate, there's so much pollutants coming from everywhere. You can hear sounds from outside. So it's really not an ideal place for an investigation anyway, just because of the amount of sort of audio pollutants and everything.
I kind of compare it to Amityville.
Yeah, always our answer to that, really. I think both very similar.
We did shows on Amityville, and Jennifer for our American team did joined us today in Amityville, and what we dug up. I mean, the house was built in 1926 by a doctor and his wife, and they were there for about 50 years. They sold it in 1974 to the Fields. Now, in all the time, in all that 50, 48 years, whatever, there was nothing happened at all.
Yeah.
The Fields moved in. We all know what happened there. Then the Lutzes moved in. They were there for 28 days, and then they left in terror. The place was wrecked. But we found that the people who moved into the house after it reported that there was no damage to the house at all. They read the Lutz's story. The house was ripped apart, and the people moved in and said, well, it wasn't ripped apart. We decorated, and that was it. There was nothing wrong with the house. Yeah. And since then, since the Lutz's left, there's been nothing ever reported in the house. And then they started it turned out that the Lutzes hired a publicity agent to make a movie and all the rest of it. And the agent turned out to be Ronnie DeFeo's defence lawyer. That's who they hired as a PA for them.
Interesting.
And then even the DeFeo murders, they say that Ronnie did it all, but they found gunshot residue on the eldest daughter's hands. She was found dead and shot, but they found gunshot residue on her hands. Yeah. So the only way you can get that is if she'd fired a gun. So the story kind of. But then people they've made a fortune out of it, haven't they? I mean, they've made.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Who cares about the truth if there's a couple of quid to be made? Unfortunately, I think a lot of places fall into that trap.
It's the old coinage. I mean, you look in Amazon, how many films, just type in Amityville, and many films have been made with the name Amityville attached to it. I mean, they were good films. I did like the film, but that's where it ended for me. But no, it's so that I always compare it to Amityville. It was just a cash cow, basically. I mean, he's driving. I think it's about £300 to investigate there. So you add that up per week.
That's a lot of money.
Somebody's doing a lot of trips to Asda and to the bank. Know what I'm saying? Know what I mean?
It is a lot of money, and it's difficult to say because there's so many places that charge money, but certainly that one, there's just a lot of inconsistencies and just things that don't add up when you actually look at it in a bit more detail. It's It's all. I think it's always going to be one for discussion. 30 Years Drive.
I think when one, you get a story and everybody believes it or whatever, but then if one wee doubt pops up, then I think you need to look at it closer.
Yeah.
And you say, right, well, if there's one inconsistency there, how many more is it? And so you need to start digging and looking, and it's amazing how many things just don't add up. You're not saying it's not true, but you say, well, this doesn't quite fit.
That's all part of investigating.
It is. It's the same as police investigate crimes, so they need to rip everything apart and investigate every avenue. It's the same with basically what we do. You need to look down all different avenues. I mean, but I've rabbited on long. That's around 40 minutes we've been on, young man. You know what I mean? I've kept you longer than I thought, but I do apologise for that. So I'll keep you for a wee second after we come off. So where can people find you?
So we're on all of the platforms, really. YouTube's our main one. We post on there. Well, I say regularly. We've been quiet this year, as per previous discussion. But YouTube, Shadow Paranormal, Facebook, Twitter. Not Twitter. No, we're not on there anymore. Instagram, TikTok, all of the platforms really. Just type in Shadow Paranormal and you should find us. And we've got a load of new videos coming next year.
Oh, talk about shadow. That was what the shadow came by the window. Where was it?
That was at the Harwich Redoubt Fort.
Harwich Redoubt Fort. That's it.
Yeah.
That was a weird one.
Yeah. I mean, that was a very active night. We had a lot of things going. I mean, we done some audio recordings there, and we actually recorded basically the sounds of like full conversations in a room, dogs barking, like we just recorded life from 150 years ago. Yeah, that shadow moving past the window, I think, is definitely one of our best captures to date.
Because you had a camera outside as well, watching the house, basically.
Yeah. The camera inside facing out, which saw the shadow go past, and the camera outside facing in saw nothing. Which, I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever that one camera would record something and another camera would show nothing there. But it does also kind of, I mean, it does throw into the thing of does an observer or does a perspective make a difference when it comes to witnessing ghosts? And could that be why certain people see things in a certain way and others don't? Does the actual observer change how whatever it is interpreted?
And anybody could just say, "Oh, it was somebody walking by the window." Simple, But with the camera being outside as well, and these were the only ones there, you start to think, well, who was it?
Yeah, and again, but having it the other side, but again, it's outside, but there's also, it's definitely not one of us, but there's also nothing else there, so it just doesn't make any sense at all. In fact, it's even stranger.
I nearly forgot to mention that. Just we say shadow. Oh, the shadow in the window. I found that quite perplexing. That's a big word for me this time, right? Perplexing. But so I'll keep a hold of you. So when we call, but give the video a watch, folks. Episode 23. I need to look up what was it called again? But I started to Return to the Shadows. So I forgot the name of the video. No, it's too late for me. I'm up in the school run every morning. Where's you done? Return to the Shadows, episode 23. It's on YouTube. Give it a watch because it is really, really interesting. And some of their captures are amazing. And they do try and debunk everything that they catch. And they're doing every single avenue before they say they can't explain it. And so do give them a watch. But that's us for tonight. So a big thanks to Luke for coming in. And
thanks for having me. It's been great.
We always seem to have a good wee natter, as we say up here.
We always go on for getting on 2 hours, which is always a good sign.
Aye, well, usually I try to keep it for an hour and 15, but we're kind of slightly over that, aren't we? Who cares? I think that's a sign here when you. I mean, I've watched some shows, and I've said this before. You just want to go to your granny's funeral watching them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just want, you want to dig your own grave and jump in it, basically. Especially like I watched one the other night, and it lasted about 10 minutes. I'm turning this off. It's a good job we have an electric oven. That's all I'm going to say. But if you get a show that goes on for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it doesn't dry up, there's no, how do you call it, dead air or whatever the saying is, I don't know. When the hosts are sitting there like that.
Yeah, just keeping the momentum going with it, just keeping it, not having any sort of lulls, I suppose.
With that, who's going to talk? Can I hang out? But when it keeps going and going, I think that, I do enjoy the doing it, and I think that's a sign. I'm not blowing a rain trumpet, but I do think that's a sign of a good show. Just my opinion, you know what I mean? But we'll wind up there, folks. So, again, thanks to this, man. Give them a look up. We're back on, I don't know, I'm going to look up my diary again. I think we're back on Wednesday with Net Lock. Aye, Wednesday with Net Lock. Then we give wee Rosie next Sunday coming up. Wee Rosie, with that, she's like 3 foot 2, wee munchkin. She was up here visiting. She went behind the kitchen table and disappeared. I was like, where are you? She said, I'm here. Wee Rosie Cardi, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. She really is. All right, so we'll wind up there, folks, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And mind you, your Christmas lights up. We'll see you later on. Bye. Bye.